The Definitions of Economics, Part 2. In this video, we learn the second definition of economics. This one given by a new classical economist, Alfred Marshall. He said, economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. It examines that part of individual and social action which is most closely connected with the attainment and with the use of material requisites of well-being. Thus, it is on one side a study of wealth, on the other and more important side a part of the study of man. Now there are three aspects of this definition. The first being that this definition is studying the ordinary business of life, the ones that relate to earning their living, so that one can satisfy their most common needs like fooding, clothing, and shelter. The second aspect being the fact that it examines individual as well as social action, the ones that pertain to material welfare. That means this definition studies only those activities that have an economic connotation and not the non-economic activities. The third aspect is that it completely shifts the focus from wealth to welfare. Now there are certain characteristics of this definition. The first and the most obvious one is the fact that it was completely different from the one given by Adam Smith. Where Smith was concentrating on the concept of wealth, Marshall is concentrating on welfare. It is studying an ordinary man in his ordinary life. It was concerned with material gains, yes, but it seemed more like a real man and not an economic man. Not everyone is always aware about giving satisfactions to the max. Another thing was that this definition stressed on promoting human welfare. It studied the subject matter as an arts as well as science, and it considers the material welfare as a part of social welfare, not a separate study, but something that belonged together and needed to be studied as a whole. There are certain merits to this definition. One, that where Adam Smith ended, Marshall added to it. It brought another perspective to what economics is. Now we don't just look at it from the wealth concept, but also look at it from the point that it is related more to humans in the welfare concept. It mentioned economics as a social science and not just as a pure science, because we study about humans in their ordinary business. It was creating a proper relation between the concepts of wealth and welfare that Adam Smith had not been able to provide. This definition helps to explain economics as a normative science, and by doing so, it gives more clarity to what economic activities mean. Again, this definition was not enough, as there were multiple economists who felt this left out a lot that they thought needed to be included in this subject. As such, there were criticisms. One of the persons who criticized Marshall's definition was another neoclassical economist, Lionel Robbins. He felt that this distinction between economic and non-economic activity is rather invalid, as almost all activities are in some sense economic. So he considered it to be very unscientific. He added to this fact that it lacked analysis which would give credence to this definition. There were also other economists who felt that the term welfare was very vague and subjective, as what is welfare for one may not be considered so for another. Marshall considered that welfare can be attained through material means only, but in reality, there are multiple times when our welfare does not depend on them, like someone consulting a doctor for an ailment. A doctor's service is not in a materialistic term, and yet it does provide welfare to the said person. So it was felt that not all material goods brought welfare, like intoxicants or poison. Another problem with this definition is that it narrows down the scope of economics to materialistic aspects that made them the end. But in reality, the material goods weren't the end, but rather the means that led to welfare. Marshall also failed to explain how do we satisfy the unlimited human wants with scarce resources. So, some economists were of the opinion that treating economics as social science and not human science rendered it more theoretical than practical.